Hello, welcome to the Magic of Podcast with me, Paul Roffman. I have a very special guest all the way from the UK. Well, I'm in LA at the moment, so he's in the UK. He's usually in LA. He's in the UK. He's all over. He's a wonderful friend to start off with, but he's a fabulous musician, composer, writer, teacher, just a jolly nice chap. It's my wonderful friend, James Carrington. Hey, James.
Hi, Paul. How are you?
I'm very good, as if we hadn't just had a little pre-chat, but
yes,
we're so pro now.
A warm-up.
A little warm-up.
Yeah.
So how you doing? You're in lockdown in the UK. Well, whatever it is.
We're in lockdown-ish, I'd say. July 4th, which is not a big deal over here, but it was a big deal this year because they reopened pubs and restaurants. I'm in a small but very beautiful old town called Bradford-on-Avon in Wiltshire, which is about 10-15 minutes from Bath.
Oh, lovely.
And it's wonderful here, and it has been very much lockdown. But last Saturday at 8 a.m, I got the first haircut in 3 months in the town because I was desperate. I was down here, and it was great. But it's beginning to move a little bit. But people here are being very, very cautious and sociable and wearing masks and really taking it seriously. And on Saturday, there was sort of worry that everybody would get very drunk and, behave in a way that was inappropriate, but it didn't happen. So I think, it's a good sign here at the moment.
Very good. And you're looking healthy and happy and together.
Yeah, I'm the healthiest, I think. Well, I certainly feel that I've been for a very long time. And that's primarily because I got myself clean and sober. So I'm not, I don't drink any alcohol, I don't take any drugs. And I'm not even on any medication that I've been on for many years for bipolar. At the moment, I may have to go back on that, and I have it with me. But at the moment, I'm balancing myself very nicely, and I'm eating well. And I've just done my 87th day in a row of running.
Wow.
So it's been a really renewing time in a strange time. So.
Right. So, let's dig into that a little bit.
Sure.
Drugs and alcohol and rock and roll.
Rock and roll, or not really. Sad and roll.
Sad and roll.
Sad and roll. Yeah.
So where did this is it something that's always been in the background, or did it develop? Or
I think coming from England where you can drink at sort of 16 and get away with it. I had a bar in my school, so. In what we called A2, which was A-level year, so, senior high in America.
17, 18,
yeah,
19.
18 years old. We had a bar in our school 4 nights a week. You could go for an hour and drink as many pints as you wanted. Which is kind of crazy. At school. I mean, when I told my parents about it, they're like, we're paying how much money? And you what? So, and people got shit-faced. I mean, they did. So I kind of learned to drink from an early age, and I always had quite a good tolerance for it. So booze was around all my life until recently. And I don't know, that wasn't really the thing that was destroying me, although it wasn't good and it was there and I had to cut it out because you've got to cut everything out. If you're going to get sober and if you're going to get clean from drugs, you have to get clean from alcohol. Right. But what really took me down was cocaine. And I was very, until I went to rehab and understood what it's all about, I was surprised at myself that it was cocaine that would be my drug. Because whenever I'd done it earlier in my life, first of all, I'd been frightened by the amount it cost. Secondly, I always had initially found it like fine, but it kind of made you feel a bit edgy. And also, I didn't really like people when they're on cocaine. But then something happened that was very much a game changer. And I'll never forget this, but I went to see my psychiatrist, and he's an amazing man in Sherman Oaks called Dr. Alan Phillips. And he said to me one day, I went to see him because I was depressed, and I thought I probably had to sort of rebalance my medical dose of the antidepressants and mood stabilizers I was on. And he said to me, he was sitting on the seat opposite looking at me, and I was kind of crying on his sofa, and he goes, "What were your school reports like?" I said, "What's that got to do with anything?" He said, "What were they like? Was there any consistency to them?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I guess they all said, James is very talented. Everybody loves James. If only he'd focus more." And I looked at him, and he said, I always wondered if you maybe had a little bit of the old ADD. And I said, "Oh." And then his very next question was, "Do you like cocaine?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I do, actually. I quite like being on it." I wasn't full-blown addict by this stage, but I, had done it enough to know. And by this stage, unlike earlier in my life when I'd done it and feel a bit edgy sometimes, unless I'd had a lot of alcohol, around this time, like 2017, 18, I would feel very calm. And he said, how's it make you feel?" I said, "Well, it kind of makes me feel really calm and kind of focused." He goes, "So pretty different to most people on coke, right?" I said, "Yeah, because most of them are like loud and arrogant and blah, blah, and they're annoying, whereas no one could ever tell I was on it." And he said, "Yeah, I thought so." He said, and at the time I was thinking about going back to school to study clinical psychology, which would require me to do 60 hours a week. And he said, "Look, you're going to struggle because your ADD is strong enough that your focus will be... And I would recommend that you take this ADD medication." Now, what's in that medication is what would be in pure cocaine. I'm not saying the crap you're taking, because I'm sure it's street cocaine, it's cut with everything. But in pure cocaine, it's the same thing. And so people like you, with your brain, it focuses you. Now, of course, being naive and stupid at that moment, I thought, "Oh, well, it's all right to take cocaine, And that was a very bad decision, because in my mind, he never said that to me. He never said, "It's okay for you to take coke." I mean, he'd be horrified if I ever thought that he'd ever said that. Mm-hmm. He was just making me understand why and giving me a red flag. Like, you can get addicted because you can function on it and you're not, like an obvious cocaine user.
Yeah.
Because people like you. So, ultimately, that was one of the reasons why the usage went up. But what I learned when I went to this incredible rehab in Scotland called Castle Craig was all the other reasons why you become an addict, and how it's a disease, and how people with bipolar, which I've had for a long time, I wasn't properly diagnosed till 2008, but I think I've had it since I was 16, really. A lot of people like me become addicts. They go hand in hand, So it's it was an amazing journey, that rehab, amazing.
One of the things that I think is really difficult with drugs and our industry and being around it is the kind of implicit acceptance that it's all right, first of all. So you'll be at a party, it's around, it's just it's just a thing, it's there.
Yeah.
And I know myself that there was a transition point where I could say, no thanks. Even under those circumstances where it's so easy to say yes. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Someone pulls out a line or something, and then they say, "Oh, just go on," and you're like, "Nah, oh, all right," or it's a drink, or whatever it is. I mean, that happens with alcohol, happens with lots of things that maybe you didn't fancy doing, and then they go, "Oh, come on, just have a drink with me," and you go, "Oh, all right, I'll have a drink with you," but you didn't really fancy it. And what I wonder is how, I know in my head, I'm lucky because I'm not addictive. My personality generally is not addictive so far, which I'm, I know is lucky. And also if I overdo it, my body just goes into shutdown. I'm just like, it won't let me. So, but there was a point where all of that stuff stopped being, if I wanted to do it, I would do it because I wanted to do it rather than I'm peered, pressured into it, or it's just the way things are. Or how do you deal with it at that point, like now moving forward, if you're going to be around it and it's that kind of, it's not important, here you are, have this, how will you, or how do you deal with it then?
It's a really good question, and it's very ironic you're asking me today, because on June the 29th, I got 6 months clean time, which was, really great. Because the first time I tried, I only got to 100 days and then I relapsed.
Right.
But this time I got 6 months and it feels different. But today a friend of mine said, hey, you coming to a party that's happening kind of towards the end of July? And it's a friend of mine who I've loved for a long time. Who's a wonderful fashion designer called Alice Templey. And she throws incredible parties. They're always incredible. And she lives in Somerset. And it's a really wonderful house. And it'll be all my old friends. Like, it's something I would love to do because it's, in one night I would be able to see all these people that because having lived in LA for 10 years, I really don't see them. And friends are like, you have to come. And I'm very, very in two minds about it. And I think if I do go, I'm going to plan it strategically. I'm going to go there on the train. I don't have a car anyway. And I'm going to get there with a B&B nearby, and I'm going to set an alarm on my phone, and I'm going to leave when that alarm goes on. Because you can go to a party sober, especially if you've got a bit of time like me. If I was like 2 months, 3 months, not a chance. But now I've got 6 months, and I've had cravings and temptations and beaten them so far, one day at a time.
Right.
I would feel confident enough to do that, but what I wouldn't feel confident enough to do is, I'm going to the party for the weekend, not have any plan, and still be there at 3 a.m, a little bit tired, a little bit like someone comes up and you're caught off edge. You're in real trouble then.
Yeah.
Now, a lot of people would say you're mad to go even anywhere near that in the first year. And they've got a valid point, and I still may not go. But at the same time, I don't want to be one of these people that misses out on life, real life, not drug and drink life, but real life, just because I had an issue. And I really work my program hard, every day. I do all the things I've been told to do. And if I don't, things start to slip. It's that simple.
Really?
And I think the black and whiteness of the 12-step program, for me, not for everyone, but for me, has been one of the great joys of my life, in finding that I always thought life was incredibly complicated. And life is always going to be challenging and difficult at times, and other times it's going to be joyful. But the complicated times, I just couldn't handle them. I couldn't do it. I felt like I hadn't grown up. I couldn't take responsibility. I just would run away. I didn't know I was doing that. I thought it was just having fun. But I would run away. And what it's taught me is if you follow this program, which is basically following a set of, and rules is the wrong word, following a program, and it's advice. It's only ever written as advice. It never says, you must. It says, if you try this, we think. And I love that. The literature has taught me to talk differently. It's taught me to think differently. It's taught me to approach people and situations differently. And one of the things that they say in the 12-step program is people, places, things. And that's to do with suggesting that you avoid situations where you could get into trouble. Now, this party is an absolute example of, is that dodgy? Because it's people and places and things that could lead you to it. And it really depends on how you're feeling. And I think that in the 2 or 3 days running up, if I feel at all fragile or vulnerable, I just won't go.
Right.
Because my recovery and my sobriety means way more than any party will ever mean ever again. But if I'm feeling strong and I've booked myself a place to exit that party at 10:30, 11, and I either come home that night all the way back to where I am, or I go to the B&B and I just read a book, which I do every night anyway, and I do my prayers and meditate, I think I'll be all right. But to make that decision, I'm not going to do that until nearer the time. And I'm also going to ask my God and my higher power, which I see as hugely influential in my life now, what the right thing is to do. And the feeling will come through, because that's the thing that I noticed when I went to my rehab, was the biggest struggle that my fellow addicts had in rehab, because it was a rehab based around the 12-step program. And the biggest struggle they had was steps 2 and 3. Some struggle with step 1, which is admitting that you are powerless over alcohol or drugs and that your life would become unmanageable. Because to actually say that out loud, believe it, say it to other people, some people have very difficult time with, even when they're in a rehab. But steps 2 and 3 is when you turn your life and your will over to the control of a higher power, or as they say, God as you understand him. And that's crucial, because if they stopped it at God, 3/4 of the people would leave that program and probably die.
Has that changed? That's changed then, hasn't it? Didn't it used to be a bit of a God thing?
No, because the literature that we still read from is what Bob and Bill invented in 32. What didn't invent, they created out. And they both realized that if it became a religious program, and they say, this is not a religious program, it's a spiritual one.
Right.
And, I remember being in a meeting once in LA where a guy was asked at the end to lead everyone out in a prayer. And I was standing next to a very good friend of mine who takes his recovery very seriously and has been very helpful to me. And he's, got many years now, and his life's changed beyond all recognition from what it was. And the guy that was asked to lead out the prayer was a dick. Because what he did was he said the Lord's Prayer just to fuck with people.
Right.
Which was very, very dangerous.
Yeah.
Because there could have been a few addicts in there struggling who would have gone, oh no, it is a religious program. They'd have left, drunk or used, and they could well be dead or in jail, and he was really angry. And when we left, I said, it's all right, man, calm down. He goes, no, it's not okay. Mm-hmm. This is not a religious program. And it was fascinating because I didn't really mind the Lord's Prayer. Like I grew up singing in a cathedral. I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. But, if people think it's religious, they'll run a mile. And this program saves lives all over the world, day after day. So
you're plugged into it. And yeah, I think, listen, you can, at some point you're going to be around stuff. And so you need...
especially in the world I'm in, I can't avoid it. So what you have to do is get strong in your program, in your work, because it's really simple. That's the other thing, the simplicity. Meetings, and it's better to do one. In your first year, they say do one every day. I sometimes do 2 a day. I find great solace in them.
Right.
So meetings and wisdom. Meetings, regular conversation with your sponsor, the step work, and prayer and meditation. And all of that, if you incorporate that, do it well in a day, take a maximum of 2 hours, less even, which when it's saving your life and giving you your life better than you've ever had before, how hard is that?
I think it's the same with a lot of things, though. I mean, you can take that ideal into anything that you do, being creative, being just functioning. I mean, especially in today's what's going on. A friend of mine was doing. In fact, I did a interview with him, a guy called Lee Warren, and we had a meeting early on, and he said, I remember at the beginning of the pandemic sort of thing, and he said, you want to be able to look back in May 2021 at March 2021 and look back at March 2020 and not say, what the fuck happened? Where was I? You want to be able to say, actually, that was the point when I did that thing and I started that plan of action. And now in March 2021, look where I am. Look how much I've stepped forward because I took it one day at a time. I did that one thing. I did those 10 press-ups. I went for a run. I meditate. Whatever it was that you did, that's where it began. And you can, I practiced my guitar. I got a lesson in something. I learned a language. Whatever it is, that's when it starts. And it's so funny. I keep seeing this thing iterated again and again and again from people like Ricky Gervais talking on his little lockdown videos. And the constant is just do it. Do the thing that you need to do. Keep doing it. Keep trying. Keep working at it. Don't blame yourself, but keep pushing forward and one day at a time because they accumulate. Yeah. But we're in such a hurry.
I was very, very lucky. That's very, very true. I'm really glad you brought that up. I was very lucky because the mother of my children is a wonderful woman called, well, that's how we met, Claudia Schulte, who's, she's really an extraordinary person. And she would say to me often, particularly when it came to my music, she would say, I know you're promoting and I get why you're doing that, but ultimately just keep doing the work, keep writing, keep practicing and playing and performing. Keep doing the work. Focus on that much more than the promotion because ultimately something will come from that. And I would rail against it going, yeah, but without promotion, there can be it would just sit in my iTunes library. She said, I promise you, the way it works, I really believe this, if you just do the work. And, the other day I found myself making an excuse for not having been able to call someone back because I said I was really busy. But instead of it being a load of fucking bullshit, which I used to used to do, I realized I was really busy, and I was really busy with amazing projects, some of which I had started even in the midst of being full-blown addict, but they'd all fallen to the wayside because my life was a total mess and it was totally unmanageable. But I've picked some of them up. Now I'm clean and sober with good intentions, living in truth, and all of them are taking on lives of their own, bit by bit, one day at a time, like you said, but slowly they're all coming to fruition. And I'm not in charge. I haven't got the reins. I'm just doing the work. Something else is making them go forward. And I think control is one of the biggest problems that a lot of people have, but particularly addicts, is they want to be in control. And when they're in control, but they think they're in control, but they're not at all, it all goes wrong. And you have to accept, and that's why for me, the Serenity Prayer is one of the wisest things you can ever say as a human being, because it's so simple. And yet it's literally a roadmap for life. It comes up in every situation, you know.
And you're in the creative industry where, ironically, you have no control other than in your creativity.
No. You cannot predict what's going to happen to your output. All you can do is make it.
All you can, and you can't question it. You have to keep throwing stuff at it, and you have to keep developing and developing. So, where did you go to school?
I went to, my prep school was I was a chorister at Salisbury Cathedral School. Then I went to Bryanston in Dorset. Right. And I was a music scholar there, so I did a lot of music and a lot of acting. And then I went to Edinburgh University, and then I went to LAMDA, and then I became an actor, and then I eventually ended up becoming a musician.
I didn't know you went to LAMDA.
Yeah, that's actually where I met Claudia in 1995, very briefly. In the first week, we were on the same. We both got onto the 3-year acting course, which is the really good one that I think it's about 3,000 people for 30 places or something. And I remember it was I felt very proud, and I'd taken a gamble by leaving Edinburgh a year early, because at Scottish universities you can do 4-year degree and then you get a proper honours degree, or you can do a 3-year degree and get a general. Oh, okay. And I just did that because I wanted to get to drama college. I'd only gone to university because my dad was like, please get a degree.
What did you get a degree in?
Social anthropology. I mean, actually, it's a BSc in social sciences, but it was social anthropology that was my main subject.
Right. And so you were at LAMDA. Did you do the 3 years at LAMDA?
No, because I got onto the 3-year, and in the first week, I went to see the principal, a lovely man called Peter James. And I said to him, listen, I'm worried. My father has funded this first year, but it's the only year he can fund. He's already helped me through school, and he can only do 1 year. And if I don't get the funding for the second and third years, I don't get like an Anthony Hopkins or a Michael Caine helping me, or I don't find the money from somewhere, and I couldn't get it from my county council anymore. I didn't live in Wiltshire, and I wouldn't have got it from London because I already had a grant through university. I'm going to end up doing 1 year out of 3 and then leaving, and that'll be pointless. And he said, yeah. And he said, you did a lot of acting at school and university, didn't you? And I said, yeah. And he goes, just do the 1 year postgraduate. Right. So I switched after the first week, and I did the 1 year postgrad.
And so you met Claudia there, and you got together pretty quickly.
But what happened? It's an amazing story. We met in that first week, and there was definitely a kind of a vibe. No doubt about it. And we both talked about it. We went to this place called the Handsome Cab, which was a pub on Earls Court Road, where everybody went for drinks and stuff after LAMDA or at lunch or whatever. And we sat alone. This is what I remember. We sat alone, because it was 1995, so it's 25 years ago, but we sat alone for about half an hour. And I remember that night going home and thinking, that girl's absolutely gorgeous, but she's on my course. This is a nightmare. And then, of course, I changed courses, and then I never saw her again, because the courses never mingled. Yeah. I mean, I might have caught her, a sight of her, but we never, And so 10 years went past. And I was down in Suffolk at these lovely friends of mine, and there was a wonderful woman down there who was called Ellen Darendorf. And she was very good friends with Valerie Schulte, Claudia's mum. And we got talking over the 4 days I was staying at the house. And Claudia came up in conversation. And I was like, I'm sure that's that girl who was at LAMDA, but I couldn't be sure. And then Ellen got her to come to my gig at Ronnie Scott's. And I was going out with someone else at the time, and Claudia was with Mark, and so, you know, there was nothing happened there at all, but we reconnected. And then later on in that year, the timing of it was ridiculous. I called her in September, and we'd met a few times earlier in the year, and she thought I was a bit of a twat because I just like would make plans and not turn up, because that's how it used to be. And she thought, that guy's an idiot, and removed me from her phone. And when I called her, the only reason she answered was because she didn't recognise the number, and I think she was expecting a call. We have to clarify with her, but I'm pretty sure that's what happened. And so she answered, and I said, "Hey, it's James Carrington." And I heard, she was like, "Oh," like that. But she was single for the first time in years, and you know, was obviously free to date, or to at least to go on a date with. And so I tried to be bold, and I asked if she'd meet in the Notting Hill, and we met at the Westbourne, and yeah, we were together for 11 years. We have 2 beautiful children.
Two lovely kids who drive me mad when I pop over.
Yeah, they're amazing to me, but yes, I'm sure they're a challenge.
We end up playing endlessly, and they don't leave me alone for like, "Paul, do magic trick."
Oh, that's like, so brilliant.
Yeah.
That's wonderful. I'm so glad to hear that.
And we've taken them to the park and various things. And I remember meeting you, and I think I met you in LA initially at the house. Yeah, I remember Claudia said, I've reconnected with this friend from Westminster. He's a lovely guy. You'll like him. He's really talented at this and this and this, and he's great. And you came over, and we just hit it off straight away. It was very weird. And my relationship with you, I found very strange, because it feels like I've been friends with you for like 30 years. That's what it feels like. Literally from the moment I remember we were at the pool, and I was talking to you, and we were laughing, and I think some friends came over and played guitar. Well, that may have been another time. But it was literally like, oh, this is my old mate that I've known for like 30 years. Like, we've grown up together. Yeah. It's very, very strange.
I know. I love that, though, because sometimes when you connect with people like we connected, there's this immediate familiarity, and and then someone will go, "How long have you known Paul for?" And I'll be like, "Oh, only a year." What? You know, because you feel that you'd like known them for ages. Yeah. But yeah, no, we had that connection. It was very special.
And I'm interested to hear about moving to LA, because obviously that's really important. You're a musician, you're a songwriter, and you're coming to, I mean, it's exciting in the first instance.
Los Angeles was interesting how it all happened, because I first went in 2005 to play at a music industry conference called Muse Expo that happened in what was then the Bellage. It's now the London on Sunset. They do it every year. They've moved hotels now, but it was a burgeoning music industry festival this wonderful man called Sat Bisler organised. And I'd recently signed to a company called Cheeky Music, and the man who was in charge of that company was a guy called Mel Medley. And he and Sat had a strong relationship. Sat had, I think he'd passed a few of his artists Sat's way, and it had helped Sat. He'd promoted them, and it had helped Sat with his career. So there was a kind of mutual, beneficial kind of two-way thing between the two of them. And so Sat, said to Mel, "Look, we'll have James perform." And so I came out to LA, and that was in April of 2005. And I mean, I was really overawed, because I'd spent time in New York, but I'd never been to Los Angeles. And I passed through it once on a train, weirdly enough, but I'd never actually spent any time there. And so I arrived in LA, put up in the Bellage. It was the full kind of music industry shindig, and I was the guy getting put up in a hotel and performing. And I mean, it was amazing. But I do remember sitting on my balcony at the Bellage Hotel, as it was, looking out at this sort of sprawling city that when you look from that side of the hotel, you're looking down Hollywood, Beverly Hills, and on towards LAX. And I wrote this song called Jonas. And the song is about a guy who's living in a slightly strange situation. And I'm sure the influence of that song came from looking out at that city and wondering what sort of lives go on here, because it's so different from London and it's so different from New York. And it is hard to connect when you first arrive. And so later, I came back later that year, and I had a month living in Venice with a friend of mine called Rona Mitra, a lovely girl, and she put me up
I
for...
know, yeah. She went to my drama school.
Right.
And quit.
So
and then became a star.
Yeah, she did. No, she did well. And her brothers, Jason and Guian, are very, very close friends of mine. And Rona very sweetly put me up for a whole month down in Venice in her house. And I had no car to begin with. And I had a very lonely time for the first 2 weeks. She was quite busy with work and I didn't know anybody. And to be honest, I hated LA. Mm-hmm. But I did have this one rock and roll experience, which I'll never forget. I got invited to Charlize Theron's 30th birthday party, completely randomly, because my friend, Rona's boyfriend at the time was a lovely guy called Mathieu Schreier. He has a show on KCRW. He's a brilliant DJ, incredible record collection, and a real lover of music. And we connected, and we were making some music together in the studio, and he got me to play football with him on soccer, as we should say in America. With him, we never
say soccer. Never ever say soccer.
We shall always say
It's our
football.
game. It's played with foot and a ball. It's our game, and they can stop saying soccer. They can stick their soccer where the sun don't shine. It's football.
Hey,
their
football.
Their game is NFL or American football, whatever.
Exactly.
Who cares?
American football to us, isn't it?
Yeah. Sorry.
But yes, no, you're right. You're right. I'm with you.
We don't need to pander to them.
No, that's true.
They had their independence. They probably want us back.
Well, all the Americans I know who love football, like soccer, football, and who are into the Premier League, they're all like, no, don't call it soccer to us either. It's football,
Exactly.
Whereas if you speak to Americans who aren't really into football, they'll call it soccer because to them, But anyway. So a guy called Stuart Townsend, who's a good actor,
yes.
and he was Charlize's boyfriend at the time, and he was playing football, and he'd invited Mature and Rona to her party, and I somehow managed to get an invite. So I'll never forget this. I had a car from the company called Rent-A-Wreck,
yes,
and it was this little old Honda Civic. And I was like, down the PCH. And Rona Mature had gone off in her big fat G-Wag. And I was like, in my little Honda Civic. I turn up at Charlize's Malibu, beachside house, beautiful house. And literally the valet told me to drive on. He was like, no, you're not coming here. I'm like, no, I'm coming to her birthday. He's like, not in that, you're not. And that was when I realised there was a sort of snobbery. And I was like, what? So anyway, I got out of the car and I said, I am coming to this party. If you don't believe me, watch this. And he wouldn't take my keys. And I'm like, what? So I went to the door and there was a bouncer on the door. And he came and he's like, who are you? And I was like, oh, this is going to be an LA nightmare. I'm going to get turned away. And luckily, as I was standing there, Stuart saw me and he was like, James! And he comes over, he says to the bouncer, that's my friend, let him in. And then said to the valet, oi, park his car type thing. So I turned to the valet, because I'm not at all, I hate when people look down on anyone. And I said, look, I did tell you I was coming to the party. I know it's a Honda Civic, but, So I gave him the keys.
Wow.
And then I went into the party, and Stuart was so sweet, and he introduced me to a few people, but he obviously was a host with her, and he had to go off and do things. I'm looking around, I see John Hurt. I'm like, my God. And Stephen Dorff comes over, has a little chat for a minute. Then I get left on my own. And I'm like, I didn't really know anyone. And I was about to leave because I thought, look, I've had an hour here, but I don't know anyone. And I didn't want to get wasted because of the drive, And then the next thing I know, Charlize comes up and she's wearing a belt with tequila shots in it. She goes, I hear you're Rona Mature and Stuart's friend. And I said, yeah, look, it's been a wonderful party. And, but I got to go. And she goes, no. And she gets tequila out and makes me drink 4 shots in a row so that I couldn't drive. And I was like, And I had an amazing night. I mean, it just got so much better. That's the only time I would say alcohol was a good thing. But I had a great, great night. So that was a crazy experience. So I do remember that. But that month was very much a lonely time. And I came back to England not convinced at all by LA and wasn't planning to live there. Then I met Clouds. Then I ended up getting involved through Claudio with this man called Klaus Bedelt, and I ended up making an album with him over a period of years. Started going back to LA quite regularly and had some amazing experiences recording in Henson Studios, Swing House. I mean, my album featured Abe Laboriel Jr., Michael Landau, Louis Conte, and Tom Costa was my band. I mean, that's a dream. And then James Guthrie mixed it. And we did the 30-piece string section at Abbey Road Studio One. I mean, Klaus gave me one of the most incredible experiences of my life, for which I'm truly grateful to him. And it was an extraordinary experience. And over that time, I started to fall in love with LA. Around about 2009, though, I was in London, living with Claudia, and I was teaching. I'd started to teach, and I loved my teaching. And the beginning of 2010, after this holiday in Mexico, she announced, I'm going to live in LA. In September, I'm going to make that move. Are you coming? If you don't come, we need to talk about us. And I was like, what? So I said, well, can I have a couple of months to think about it? She goes, yeah, but I'm going to do this. I've thought about it for too long now. And if I don't go, I won't go. We don't have any kids at the moment, you know. So anyway, of course, a few months later, I obviously decided to go with her. And so we left at the end of August. And we did just have her flat to basically kind of, you know, for the first year, I think she rented it out every so often. But basically, we didn't really do that much leaving in case, you know, she was much more organised and sorted. And I fully credit Clouds with the move to LA. Like, if it wasn't for her, I don't think I'd have gone.
Yeah.
Because I saw LA as a place I could work in. It had opportunities. Did I want to live there? Wasn't so sure. And when I first arrived, 2010, she was over the moon, ecstatic about moving. And I was utterly miserable. First 2 months. And I had to go back. We moved in September. I had to go back in October to get my O1 visa from the embassy. And I remember having these 24 hours of wondering about not getting back on that plane. And I was freaked out because I loved London and I didn't really like LA. And I was like, but I came back. And then by December, we'd found this beautiful little home in Nichols Canyon to rent. And everything changed. Because as soon as we lived in the canyon and we had this house and I started to get work as a teacher and music started to happen a little bit and LA started to become the great place it can be, within 6 months, I was like, oh my God, why have I not lived here before? And I was madly in love with it. But it did take time. And I always say to people when they first move, don't expect overnight happiness. It takes a bit of time. You know, I mean, how do you feel about it since you've moved?
Well, I've been coming here since I was a kid, and you know, I came here like big time. We had an old cousin who lived here. He lived to 100. He was a he was a super
respect.
Yeah, super rich Republican who didn't give me any money.
Wow.
Got the old sandwich. Yeah.
Right.
He was, but a very, very smart and interesting guy nonetheless. And
yes.
So I'd come here as a kid, and then I remember coming here at 15 with my mum, which was like the perfect, you know, and it was the 80s. I guess it was it'd been late 80s, and Tower Records was the holy shrine.
Wow.
And I remember
on Sunset
and having a little notebook of a list of CDs I was going to buy. And I remember walking out with a stack of like Sting and Prince, and just like it was the smell and excitement of that.
Did you go to Amoeba in the same...
No.
Amoeba, I hope Amoeba survives COVID. Because the fact that's still going, that place is such a treasure, and it would be absolutely devastating if that closed down. I mean, Tower Records was a chain, but Amoeba's like this landmark of, you know, CDs and records and live performances. I mean, McCartney played there.
Right, yeah.
You know,
but Tower Records used to do the gigs as well. I think there was like a John Mayer thing, and
really,
yeah. But you know, it was a really exciting place, and actually, I hung out with Rowan Joffe back then.
Oh.
And we went to his dad's house, and I remember we went to the cinema. I think I stayed over. My mum dropped me there. We were in Pasadena. My mum dropped me there, and we stayed over. And Alan Rickman was by the pool.
No way.
And
rest in peace.
Yeah, it must have been Die Hard time. I mean, he was, you know, super famous.
Wow.
And super cool, like, you know, 15, it's Alan Rickman. Oh, holy shit.
Hans Gruber.
And yeah, and I remember going up to him and chatting with him, and he had a stack of scripts, and he's like, he showed me this script, and he went, yeah, I'm reading this. And I was, oh, wow. And he was turning the pages, and it was by Marlon Brando, the script. And I was like, Oh, it's by Marlon Brando. That's so exciting.
Written by Marlon
Written
Brando.
by Marlon Brando. He went, it's a terrible piece of shit. You can tell after the first 3 pages. Awful.
That's classic. Really.
So,
It's supposed to show it might be the greatest film actor of all time, but like, yeah. Wow.
But LA is, I feel really at home here because I know people and I'm grounded. Like LA, the problem with LA is people buy the hype. If you're into the hype and you want to come here and you want to party and you want to buy into the hype, forget about it. You're on the wrong train.
It's all going to fall apart.
All going to fall apart. Seen it a million times.
No.
I see it. You see it again and again, repeated and repeated. And the people who do really well here, the people who like go on hikes and have a place.
I saw a graph once. It's a brilliant graph. I'll try and dig it out and send it to you. But it's a graph of people who come to LA from where they come, how long they last, and then what happens to them. And it's only about 10% who make it, like who stay for longer than 2 or 3 years. And a lot of them's people within America who come from their various states, and then they all go back. And then international people tend to stay a bit longer, depending on their visa situation and stuff. But it's a place where it's sink or swim. And as you say, if you take the beauty of LA and all it's got to offer that's grounding and sensible and beautiful, like the trails and all that stuff, I think you'll have a great time, and you'll get, because if you just come for the bright lights and the bullshit, you're going to fall apart.
And it's not London. London's easy. London, you can get on the tube, you whiz about, it's walkable everywhere.
Yeah.
You can do anything easily. Whereas
that's the thing.
LA is more of a mission. And so
one of the reasons I can't come back right now, like I don't even think I can get a flight anymore at the moment because it's surging again, but even if I could get on a plane tomorrow, one of the ways I was making income last year was driving Lyft, which I loved. Uh-huh. I met so many incredible people. I mean, met hundreds of stories in my phone. I'm even thinking with a friend of mine called TJ Ramini about doing a sort of TV, not a documentary, more of a show about me talking to people in the car, because I had these incredible conversations. But like Lyft, I mean, 100 people getting in and out of the car every day, mask or no mask, I wouldn't be able to see my kids with the infection. It's difficult, but ultimately, I think that you have to look at LA as you've got to prepare, you've got to dig deep, and you've got to settle, and you've got to look at it long term and slow. It's not like, woo, New York or London, as you say, getting everyone on the tube. And LA is complicated. It becomes beautiful and simple after a while, but it's complicated to begin with. And I mean, I really struggled. I had nothing. I gave up my teaching career. I mean, I carried on. A few people FaceTime and WhatsApp didn't even exist in 2010. So FaceTime and I did it and Skype. And I'm kind of a natural teacher, so it worked. And some people stuck with me. One of the guys stuck with me for a year, But actually, if I hadn't met this wonderful lady out there called Juliet Honan, who introduced me to everybody, she literally made my teaching career happen. Like, I'm so grateful to her. If you're listening, Juliet, you're amazing. She's my twin too. We happen to have the same birthday. It's crazy. She literally got me to teach her son. And watching what I did with her son, she then started telling people, and the word of mouth was crucial to me,
right?
Because it got me my students, because music, it was great, and I've always done it, and I've loved it. But there's only been a few years in my life where I've survived only from musical income, or income from, my songs and performing and stuff. But I've always had to try to subsidize somehow or another in order to survive, and it's getting worse and worse. If it's not people not buying any records, now it's COVID, you can't even perform live.
Yeah.
So it's like, although great news has happened in England, the government have offered $1.5 billion to the arts, which is
pounds.
Life. Yeah, pounds. And a friend of mine called John Davey, who used to be a policeman. This guy's extraordinary, and he does incredible things now. He's got a company called Floorbox, and they lay floorings down. He used to do floorings for stadium concerts and stuff, and now he does it for all places all over the world. But he's got involved with this incredible idea, and it's just taking root, and it's spreading fast, and all the big promoters are starting to get on board, and they're trying to persuade the government. It's a way of getting live music happening again that's safe, and it's a very, very good idea. I just posted it on my LinkedIn today, his idea. But if that takes off, which I hope it will, it could save the live industry, which is in danger of collapsing completely. So
It'll be back. We'll be back performing very soon.
I hope. Yeah. Let's hope.
It's 100%. I mean, whatever the situation, it's funny. This idea of the new normal, the absolute, that this is this, all a lot of bullshit. All a lot of bullshit. Don't believe the hype.
Don't buy into it.
Don't buy into it. It's nonsense. New normal.
I'll tell you one thing.
Normal.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Paul. I don't know if I've told you this, but I'll never forget this. In 2008, Claudia, we were in Belsize Park in the kitchen of her flat there where I lived with her. And she used to read prodigiously a guy called Michael Lutin. He's a numerologist and an astrologer, and he used to write in Vanity Fair. But he's a very bright and brilliant guy. And I didn't believe in any of that stuff. I was a right old cynic. Oh, yeah, it's all rubbish. And she'd go, look, up to you how you wish to think. But this guy is kind of extraordinary, and you ought to read some of the stuff that he says. So I did begin to read it, and I liked what I read. And I started reading more. And in 2008, he did I guess you'd call it an article or his newsletter or his blog or whatever it was. And he said, and he's not alone in saying this, but he basically said in 2016, a man will come to America, didn't name him, but he predicted Trump. And in 2020, the world will be hit by something that we've never seen before. And other things will happen, uprisings, pandemic. I mean, it was chilling to the bone to remember. And then the other day I texted her and I said, remember Luton, 2008? She goes, yep. He said, to a T, that man nailed it. As of others in that field. But they knew this was coming. And the great thing that I'm focusing on is the world is supposed to be in chaos between 2016 and 2024 because changes have to happen for the human race. But the great thing is that in 2024, there's going to be a lot of chaos between now and then, but wonderful things will have happened, changes will have come, things will have shifted, and it could and should be a much better world. I mean, we've still got climate change to deal with, but it should be a much better place to be a human. So that's my hope. I'm trying to, I'm a very optimistic fella. So, fingers crossed.
So let's get back to the music. And what would you say was your most sort of significant beginning musically, where you're starting to get known for what you're writing, what you're putting out?
Well, in terms of other people knowing about me, is that what you mean as opposed to my sort of early influences, but actually sort of getting some sort of public recognition?
Yeah.
Well, it would be, without a doubt, it was very, very, very obvious. So in 2005, when I came to LA on those bunch of trips, a woman called Tammy Lester, who worked at EMI Publishing, and I was published by a company called Cheeky Music, and EMI were my sub-publishers. So I could go and talk to people at EMI. I wasn't directly published by them, but they would get a percentage of my stuff. So they could work for me to an extent. And I went in to see her that month when I was staying with Rona at the offices in Santa Monica. And Tammy's an absolutely amazing woman. And I went to see her and I played her this song, Ache. And she said, that is a beautiful song. I said, oh, thank you very much. And she said, that's got to get onto TV and film. It's made for it. She said, I need to get you in front of some music supervisors. And so in November, she got me to come back to LA. And I spent 2 days, basically her driving me around in her open top car around LA. It was awesome. And I would basically arrive at the offices of these music supervisors, get out with my guitar, come into their office, play them a couple of songs, talk to them for 10 minutes and leave. One of the women was called Madonna Wade Reed. And at the time, she was doing 2 shows, Smallville and One Tree Hill. And the music on them was, huge, and people got known if they got their music on them. And she heard that song, and she said, I will get this on Smallville or One Tree Hill. Either way, I will. It's a great song. 10 months go past, nothing. And I thought, oh, God, that trip proved to be fruitless. Out of the blue, she calls me, and she goes, I've landed it on a scene. I've been waiting to give this song the recognition I think it deserves. And I've got it in a scene right at the end, 5 minutes, and there's hardly any dialogue. So it's going to get major exposure. Get on it, get it cleared, let's get it sorted. You've got 4 days or whatever it was. I was like, shit. So I called the publishers, got it cleared, got it sorted, got it on the show. And she said, it's too late to get you on the credits that come up at the end, which are actually very quick. And I don't think anyone watches those in Smallville. But I've got the CW to put you on their website. And this was amazing. That episode, there was a band in the episode called the All American Rejects. They were a big band and they were well known, and they were in the episode and they were promoting their new record. And so it was supposed to be all about them. But my song played at the end in this scene called Wither. The episode's called Wither. You can find it on YouTube, but it was unbelievable. In 24 hours, my website, which had been going for 4 years and maybe had 4,000 visitors total, took 127,000 hits in 24 hours. And I suddenly realized I had, something going. And MySpace was happening at the time, and it was the big thing that you put your music on. And for 1 week, I was the #1 acoustic artist in the world. It was unbelievable. Over people like Jack Johnson and James Blunt and all those people, because of this little episode. Unfortunately, some of the infrastructure around me wasn't quite in place, and the stuff, if the single had been available on iTunes that very next day, we could have sold 120,000 copies, but it wasn't.
Right.
And that was a little unfortunate. But that song's never gone away. And it's, now I wrote it in early 2005. It got its first appearance in 2006 on TV. And I still get letters and emails and stuff from people saying, your song 8, blah, blah, blah. It's really an amazing thing. And then the internet, it's the internet. I mean, the TV, it's Tammy, Madonna, Smallville, and the internet that has basically kept me with any fans at all. Otherwise, I'd have just disappeared.
And does it earn money? Did it earn money?
It's earned money over the years. I mean, it's been on 7 TV shows,
wow,
including ER, The Vampire Diaries, One Life to Live. It was on a daytime soap, a very big one that was on for 25 years in America. It was on a couple of other shows, and it's been an amazing. That song has literally kept me afloat as a musician.
And do you maintain ownership of it?
Well, no. I mean, it's still published by the guy that I was in a publishing deal with, and that's fine. I'm recouped, so he gets his cut and I get my cut, right. And that's fine. I'd like to have full ownership of it, but that was the deal I signed, and that's what I signed.
Listen, that brings us to a point that I think. We should hear it, because I've been singing this song in my head for 8. I've seen you play at the Baked Potato numerous times, which is a really cool little venue in Studio City. I've seen you play at No Name, which was this other bar we were just talking about before we came on live. Yes. I've been to a few of your gigs, as you've been to a few of mine, and. Yeah, let's hear a bit of it.
Throat Coat, I recommend to all singers out there. It's an absolute winner.
What is
it? Herbal tea, Throat Coat. It's made by either Yogi Tea, which was Yogi Bhajan's thing, Kundalini Yoga, or Botanical Organicals. You can get it in like Whole Foods anyway. But Throat Coat, if you're a tall horse, a couple of cups of this and you're right back. It saved me many nights at gigs.
And have you changed key in this song?
I have. I used to sing it with the capo on 4, but I've got older. I didn't look after myself for a few years, and my voice has dropped a tiny bit.
Yeah.
So in order to get the higher notes, I just put the capo on 2 now, but it used to be on 4. Okay, this is Ache.
Lovely.
Isn't it strange the way things can change? The life that you lead turned on its head. Suddenly someone means more than you felt before. House and its yard turns into home. I'm sorry, but I meant to say many things along the way. So this one's for you. Have I told you I? Have I told you I? Have I told you I for you? Have I told you I? And I hope it's not too late. Can I hold you and ache for you? Hours that it took writing words for my book seemed to have opened heart. The gate that I shut last time I got hurt seems to have opened itself. And oh, the world, it's spinning now. It's trying to catch me up and tell me to appreciate the here and now. I'm sorry, but I meant to say many things along the way. So this one's for you. Have I told you I? Have I told you I? Have I told you I for you? Have I told you I? And I hope it's not too late. Can I hold you and ache for you?
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you, Paul.
Never get
Thank you,
tired. In fact, I think it gets better. I
Oh,
think it's
that's
become...
wonderful.
I don't know. I love it in that key. I love it. It really sits
Yeah,
really comfortably.
Well, John Trivers, who plays bass for me with me at the Baked Potato, not for me. He's a wonderful player. He used to play with Tina Turner, and he's written with Blue Oyster Cult, and he's an amazing guy. And he's always said to me, he said, "Look, if you just bring it down a bit. Like, honestly, it doesn't matter that your voice is dropping, getting older. It's going to sound fine." And I was worried, oh no, it's got to be up at that key. But I do think it sounds fine with the capo on second. And, I think the thing with the song is if it's a decent song, if it was really too much lower, I think it would lose a bit of its magic. But I think there it's fine, yeah.
And you've got the falsetto in it as well, so that
I can still do that, yeah. Whereas when it's on the fourth, I can do it, but it's
push,
it's a little risky.
yeah. No, it's beautiful. Do you think When did you write that song?
I wrote that in 2005, around about January, February time.
And in terms of its meaning, do you think the meaning has developed, changed? Does it because you're telling a story at one point about someone, I'm assuming.
Yes.
But that's a movable feast. And of course, we change.
You couldn't have said it better, because I think that's the thing. When I wrote it, I was with a girl who was a wonderful person, absolutely lovely, lovely girl. And I was in the kind of, it was a relationship that didn't end up lasting long as a relationship, sort of, lovers. But we're friends again now, and she's a fantastic girl. And she was very kind to me and very encouraging about my music. And I wrote it when I was with her, but we were only together for a sort of short period of time, and then as the years went by, I would sing it, and it felt very much like, it was about Claudia, because the lyrics, her house and its yard turns into home. I mean, I lived in her home in London, and then when we moved to LA, we rented somewhere, but eventually in Nichols Canyon, a house she bought it. And and there were so many, songs, but so many words in that song that began to really, now of course we're not together, and so it has a different meaning again. But, when it got out there on the TV and the internet, I started to get these messages from people about people who died, people in the past, people who they were in love with. Mm-hmm. And I hadn't even thought of that. People said, we played this at a funeral. And I was like, what? But people would play it at a wedding. People would play it about someone who did in the past, someone they loved that they wanted to be with. I mean, a love song, a ballad like that, if its message is very universal, can, mean different things to different people for different reasons. But the stories that I've had the privilege of being told by people writing to me saying, I just need you to know what your song has done in our life. And, from a guy who was on the verge of suicide when he'd found his wife in bed with another man. And for a year he wanted to kill himself. But he kept going down to a lake and listening to Ache. And he said that if it wasn't for that song, he would have died. I mean, as a songwriter, it doesn't get better than that. And then possibly the most amazing story was this wonderful man called James Sapeda in Texas. And I got an email from him saying that my song, he'd heard it on Smallville and it meant so much to him. And would it be possible for him to do a recording using my playing and production, but his vocal, because his aunt, I think, was in hospital, not well, and she'd always encouraged him to sing, and he'd never had the guts. And he thought if he was going to sing anything, he was going to sing this song. So he wrote to me, and I said, of course, and I sent him a version without the vocal. He made his own version, and I was in Africa on holiday with Claudia in 2007, I think, and I wasn't going to check my emails, wasn't really looking at my phone, and I went to an internet cafe on one day I was on this holiday, and I opened up my emails, and there was an email from him, and I'll never forget this. His aunt was in a coma, and he'd made a recording of this song with a producer in Texas, and he'd gone into the hospital, and there were 50 members of his family in this room, and she was in a coma. And he put on the recording of him singing Ache. And apparently, during the middle of the recording, her eyelids flickered and she registered something. And the nurse said, her vitals rose up, that was it. And the nurse said to James, she's not going to come out of her coma, but that means that something somewhere is being registered.
Yeah.
And he said that everybody, all 50 people were, bawling their eyes out. He was crying, which he struggles to do in public. I'll never forget this email. And then she died 2 days later. And he got to do that. And that's the power of that. And literally the other day, his wife is in hospital with COVID. She's going to be okay, but it was scary for 2 days. And he wrote to me and he said, is there any chance you can send me some music? Because your music is the biggest healer. And I'm like, so it's things like that that just humble you and make you realize what a gift it is to be able to write songs.
Yeah, and it's a beautiful song, but I also think perhaps, like, when I hear it now, it's almost like a nostalgia for Ache rather than I'm aching now about it.
Right.
Like it's for me, when I hear it, and I think even when I hear you sing it, and I've heard you sing it a multitude of times, it seems you're a mature man kind of looking back at that, remembering that feeling rather than I'm in that emotion.
Yeah,
and so
that's how it feels to me now. You're absolutely right. It's a song in the past. When I first played it, I think the first time I ever played it live was at a place called Bush Hall in Shepherd's Bush, and I played it, and no one had ever heard it before. And people came up to me afterwards and they said, "That's a great song you've written there." And I don't think at the time I was like convinced it was that good. And then I got a publishing deal. I think partly because of that song. And then I came to LA, started playing it, and suddenly it was like, these music supervisors said, that song. And then this guy at EMI called Ben Groff, who was an A&R at EMI Publishing, he went on to head up Cobalt in LA, and he's now got his own publishing company called, I think, Brill Building. But he's a really respected and very, very good A&R. And he wrote me an email that I read at least once a year that keeps me going, because he said, what you've done there is written a career song. Mm-hmm. Look after it, handle it properly. That song could not only make you money, but it could sort you out for life. And he said, if you want, I will get it to 3 huge artists tomorrow once you've read this email. This was in 2005. And at the time, my publisher chose not to do it because he thought it was better that I did it. But it was kind of frustrating because the 3 artists you were talking about were all Grammy winners, and it could have been a life changer. But you know what? It's okay. It's not gone anywhere. It's given me a somewhat of a career. It's still there on, collecting little bits of money on Spotify and YouTube and Facebook. And one day somebody may come along big and cover it. And then,
well, I think it's ripe for. I actually think you should re-record it again.
Well, I could. I'm doing a new album, and I could put it on there. The only problem is if I do that, it'll be a third time I've put it on an album.
Maybe not on that. Maybe
no, just re-release it in a different way. Maybe. Yeah. I mean, I've got this beautiful version that I did with Michael Landau, who was Joni Mitchell's guitarist, now has been James Taylor's guitarist for years. And he played on the original version on the Dreamers Machine album. But then I did another version 4 or 5 years ago with Matteo Laboriel, who's Abe's son and Abe Jr.'s brother, producing it. And Mikey so sweetly came and just recorded just because he's a friend. And he played incredible acoustic all over it. And that version's never gone out. And it could be time to put that one out. So I might make a beautiful video. In fact, you've got me thinking. Thank you, Paul. Better do it.
Well, listen, there's more than ache, and you've been right. There's a lot of songs that I've seen you play that I've really enjoyed, and you've played with a bunch of different people. Michael Landau, who's got 2 guitars, his own signature guitars on Fender, which I knew about. When I
did you?
Yeah. Because they were like, if I was going to buy a Fender guitar, the custom ones, it was a Landau. Like, I'm into John Mayer big time, but the Landau
Michael
guitar
Landau's acoustic is the best acoustic guitar I've ever played on, and he passed it to me after we recorded. I was in LA in 2007, I think, and he was playing at the Baked Potato with his wife Karen. And they have a beautiful acoustic duo called Hazy Jane. They sometimes do a Saturday night. The Michael Landau group will play at the Potato, and Sunday Hazy Jane, and it's really mellow. It's just the 2 of them. And I went to watch him one night, and he got me up on stage, and he said, I want to do that song, Stop the World. And he handed me his guitar, because he had 2, and I got to play his acoustic. It was amazing. And I'll never forget that, playing that guitar. It was like, you could have been the worst guitar player in the world and still sound good, because it was so good. Yeah.
It's lovely, you realise as a player, when you get a really good guitar, I don't think at the beginning, I think at the beginning you just need a guitar. But as you get more adept, there is so much value in a really good guitar. It's like a Harry Potter wand that chooses you. You don't choose the guitar, it chooses you.
Yeah. And I couldn't agree more. In fact, I'm at the moment, I've got some debts to clear, but I'm trying over the next year to save enough to get I'm 47 now, and I've never owned a really good guitar. I've had some lovely ones and nice ones. I had one stolen from a taxi in London. Ugh. Guy drove off, never came back. What an asshole. But then the one I've got in LA at the moment, it's not with me, so I couldn't bring it on the plane when I came over, but was lent to me by his friend of mine called Zed Took. And I gave him my Takamine, which was all right. And he gave me his Tanglewood, and it's gorgeous. And a few years ago, I said, don't you want to? And he said, no, man, you have it. And his one's worth way more. It's beautiful. Right. And I also get to play on my friend Carmen Vandenberg, her Fender, she lent me that. And that's a beautiful guitar. She gets given guitars because she's that good. I went with her to the Duesenberg factory the showroom it's just outside of LA, and they were giving her a guitar. And I'll never forget that. I was watching this girl who plays with Jeff Beck, being given a guitar by the makers of these amazing guitars, Duesenberg. And she starts playing it, and she was really excited too. And then the guy's like, "So awesome to have Carmen here," and everything's being filmed, and I'm just in the background watching. And it's a place where Keith Rich, all these people have come, and he was giving her own guitar, and I was like, "What?"
Well, I don't think there's any reason we can't get Gibson to give you a guitar, or.
Well, maybe one day. If I get a big hit song, you never know.
Well, you do, and you've been writing more stuff, and you don't just play guitar; you play piano.
I do. And I'm sitting at my parents' Kauai, which is a beautiful piano.
Right, and would you? Were you first a pianist or a guitarist?
Oh God, yeah. No, guitar I didn't play till I was 24.
Right.
I've never had a lesson. So basically, I come from a very musical family. My father was in the King Singers. He started the King Singers, and then he ended up having a second career as a choral professor, and he ended up at Yale. So he had an amazing career.
Wow.
And he's now Professor Emeritus of Yale University, which is amazing. And my mother was she went to the Royal Northern College as a pianist, and she taught piano for many, many years. And my sister's a brilliant cellist, and now has this fantastic act with her husband, Carrington Brown. It's kind of comedy cabaret. They live in Berlin. They perform all over Europe. And so I was given a violin when I was 3, Suzuki I did, and then piano at 5 I think I started, and then I was a chorister at 8. But the guitar I didn't play till I was 24, and the only reason I picked it up, literally, was because I started a band with a guy called Jake Gosling. And Jake's gone on to have an amazing career as a producer. He basically discovered Ed Sheeran, because Ed Sheeran sent him a CD and said, will you produce up a track of mine? I'm only 17 years old, but I love what you've done with this artist called Wiley, and it would be a real honour. I don't have much money, but, would you have me in for the day? And Jake put the CD on. He heard probably 20 seconds and was like, called him, come in! And Ed was very loyal, and when they got a deal, he ended up doing a record together. And Jake's gone on to have a great career. But we started a band, and we got a publishing deal with Bucks Music, and Jake was like, look, I play keys and sing, you play keys and sing, but we both can't do that. One of us has got to play guitar. We can have a guy playing lead, but we've got to have a rhythm, And he said, look, you'll pick it up quicker than me, because you've done more music, you're more musically trained. And
yeah. So
that was it, really. So I did it for that, and also so that I wasn't writing every song on the piano, and I just had to figure it out. But,
So you're at the piano. So let's hear something at the piano. Are you going to play something from your catalogue or something new? Because I know you've been working on some new stuff.
I have been working on some new stuff.
You might not want to play that yet, though.
Well, a lot of the new stuff is on... two of the new songs, which I would like to play, but I'm not going to, for the simple reason I'm going to explain.
Yeah.
I didn't know this, and I'm quite glad I did, because I would have actually played them right now. But I've been building a relationship with a very, very good manager here of songwriters and publishers, and he heard one of my songs recently, and as a result of hearing it, me literally playing it to him on FaceTime, it got sent to a huge artist who is considering it right now. I'm not going to say their name because I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
But I was going to play 2 other new ones. He's also heard these and he likes them. And the problem is, if you play something on any kind of a public thing, that big artist may not cover it. So I have to wait a little bit on those.
No, I'd rather you get picked up than play it.
It would be great for them to get covered would be wonderful. But I have written some songs that won't be covered, or may do, but I'd be happy to do them. But I'll tell you what I'd love to do would be to play a song that I have always loved on the piano called No Man's Land. And I want to play it on a piano because it's a piano-based song, but also I think because it was very much the first song that I wrote at the piano that I thought, this is a real piano song. Because when I was in Little Giants, the band with Jake, we wrote a lot on guitar, some on piano, but a lot of the stuff was kind of more guitar-driven, and we ended up having this great lead guitarist called Mike Brown, and so it kind of went that way, and we were more kind of guitar. People thought we were a bit like Counting Crows. We were that sort of kind of acoustic rock pop, But then when I became a singer-songwriter, I started, writing alone. Because between 2001 and 2008, I only wrote alone, having only ever written with Jay. And I wrote some songs. And this was a song I was really proud of that I wrote on the piano, on this Grand, actually, in Clapham. My parents lived there at the time. And I remember finishing it. And it's a song for me that I think was me trying to come to terms with what it's like to be depressed. Because I remember sitting in a flat in Clapham Common, and I could see Clapham Common, and it was covered in people like it always is in the summer. And everyone was having fun. And I would usually be out there having fun. And I couldn't go out there. I couldn't be with people. I was suffering from the black dog, as Winston said. And I was struggling, really struggling. And music's always a great, form of therapy to try to help you through it. And I think I expressed that struggle in this song. So,
what's it called?
No Man's Land.
Let's hear it.
I'm going to try and stay in camera shot there. Got a bit of light there, but anyway. There's a picture in a room with a view that scars the eye. It's like looking through a history book with a tale of time gone by. And every piece of your life is written on the page. The smile that keeps you guessing, and the voice that never fades. Like a lie that's never told, you are gracefully. Coming in out of the cold to depend on me. Chasing shadows in the dusk from your favorite hiding place. As the sun begins to set, shadows that you see just fade. And it's only when they're laughing I see what it is you feel. The sound of someone's happiness never been so near. Like a lie that's never told, you are gracefully. Coming in out of the cold to depend on me. And every now and then, when a situation ends, you may find yourself in no man's land. It's a picture in a room with a view that scars the eye. It's like looking through a history book with the tale of time gone by. And it's only when they're laughing I see what it is you fear. The sound of someone's happiness never been so near. Like a lie that's never told, you are gracefully. Coming in out of the cold to depend on me.
Beautiful. Just let that note just ring out there before I interrupted.
The grand piano.
So gorgeous.
It really is. Yeah, I had the privilege of playing for years on Claudia's father, obviously Sir George Schulte, and he had an absolutely wonderful grand piano in London in his studio in their house in St John's Wood. And that piano was, I mean, it was really hard to play another piano after that. But my parents' Kawai is actually really beautiful. And, you know, I would play pianos afterwards and be like, oh, this is rubbish compared to that. But this piano is gorgeous. It's about how brave it makes you feel. Mm-hmm. And I came across a song the other day that I wrote about clouds called Me Oh My. And there's a line in it that I came up with. I wrote it in LA when I was recording the Dreamer's Machine album. And I was thinking about her, and the line is, the lyric is, the piano that I play on every day only lets me play in minor keys. I wrote a song about you anyway, because the piano sets me free. And the piano does set me free. It really does. When I play it, I no matter what kind of day I'm having, 5 minutes in, I'm as chill as you like. It's like meditation, you know.
That's on No Man's Land.
That's on The Dreamer's Machine.
Oh, The Dreamer's Machine. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the list.
Yeah, Spotify, there's only No Man's Land at the moment that's up there. But
now, because when I've seen you play, I don't think I hear a lot of the No Man's Land. It's probably the other stuff that I've heard you play, isn't it?
Well, I've made 3 albums. I'm about to make my 4th. I've made 3. The first one I made was an album called Stop the Clocks. That was in London in 2002. Then I made The Dreamer's Machine, which took from 2007 to 2012. It finally came out. It was a long process, that one.
Right.
And then in 2016, I put an album out called No Man's Land, which is, you know, the title of that song, but which it's on. But that wasn't, I didn't make that album. That was a selection of songs over the years. I just thought I need to put something out there. I had no record deal. I didn't have the money to make an album. Mm-hmm. But I'd written all these songs and people were like, when are you putting something out? So I put that out there. I mean, thank God I did. Like, I think Ache's got 360,000 listens on Spotify and, you know. So, you know, it kind of kept me in the picture, should we say. So, but this new album I'm really excited about. Like,
what can you tell us about the new album?
Well, I can tell you, I'll tell you a lot of things about it in that the way that it happened. I honestly, when I went to rehab, I entered December 30th, Castle Craig, and I was a broken man. I was very close to dying. I really was last year, and I'm so incredibly grateful for what happened to me. But I got into rehab. And when I entered rehab, if somebody had said to me, what's your plan, apart from to get better, to get well, it would not have included ever making an album again.
And you'd been back to the UK before this big moment as well, hadn't you? You'd been
I'd tried in 2018. I'd come back and I'd spent 6 weeks living with my parents and going to NA meetings, but I hadn't done the work properly. I was still drinking alcohol, not a lot, but still, and it was just bullshit. And then when I got back in 2019, I clung on for a month trying to stay sober, and in the end got right back on it.
Right.
And by the end of July, I was a broken man, and I ended up getting clean all on my own, taking myself to AA and doing it. And I really did well for 88 days. I was on what they call the pink cloud. Everything started to come back together in life. And then had these 12 days where I felt really challenged and it was really difficult. And in the end, I collapsed and I relapsed. And 6 weeks later, I was practically dead. And that's the speed of it. The first time, it was a slow process into sort of rock bottom. But the second was 6 weeks. And they say in the program, it only ends in 3 ways. Institutions, jail, and death. Well, I've been to an institution, I'm not going to jail, and I'm not going to die. Not yet, anyway.
Not yet, yeah.
No. So the album, so basically, I was broken and not interested in music. I thought I may write again, but I was done. And 2 weeks into arriving there, I'd started playing the guitar on some evenings to some of the addicts, because it brought them some peace. And one night I'd played a couple of songs to people, and it was about 10 o'clock at night, and there were about 3 or 4 people sitting. It's a friend of mine, Lizzie, and a few other people, and they were sitting around, and I started playing this riff on the guitar. And the next thing I started singing, and some lyrics came. And they came so fast and so naturally that she goes, "Who wrote that song? Is that like a famous artist?" And I looked at her, I said, no, I'm just writing it right now. And she's like, "What?" And I realised, those moments are very rare, a bit like with Ache. It was like the lightning bolt moments, which come very, very rarely. I thought, hold on a minute. And I ran from that room not long after that, upstairs to the room I was sleeping in. And I pretty much wrote it there and then, fell asleep, woke up in the morning, finished it off. And it's called Truth and Reconciliation. And I'm going to build my whole album around that song because it was me coming back to life as a songwriter and as a musician. And I then couldn't stop. The next thing I knew, I was down in the ECU, which is the extended care unit. And I wrote this other song with a guy there called Thomas. And it's called Just Can't Do This on My Own. Mm-hmm. Then I wrote another song a week later called The Weight. All 3 of them are good enough to be on the record. Because I've got like over 300 songs now. So I've got to pick the best, and they just wouldn't stop. And then I've come to Wiltshire and I've been writing. And this guy, Willow Robinson, who I've been writing with, we've written 2 songs recently and they've made it onto the album. I mean, they're that good. So I'm really excited about this record. And the thing is, I feel I've got something to say. In 2016, when I put that album out, I didn't feel like I had anything to say new, but I just wanted to offer some songs to the world. But now I feel like I've got something to say.
Yeah.
And I feel like I've been through the process of rehab and of getting clean and sober and and seeing life in a very different light now. And I want to express that, and I want to put music out there. My job now for the rest of my life, of this I'm utterly convinced, is to be of service. Mm-hmm. It's a thing that they talk about in the program where, helping other people. Now it can be with chairing meetings or doing H&I, which is hospitals and institutions. But it can also be playing music to people, healing them, helping them, And I want my music to do that because that's really the only goodness I'll get out of it, because I've got rid of ego and self-will. Mm-hmm. And, I just want to put stuff out there that will help people.
Yeah, and we're at a stage, I think, age-wise, experience-wise, where, I speak for myself, where I think I know who I am, and we're not, hopefully, we're influenced by things, but we have choice of what influence to take on board and to run with. And we should be influenced by what's around us, but we should also be able to say, no, I don't want to be influenced by that. You know what? I'm going to turn that off. I don't need to hear that. because it doesn't do me any good. It's just, there's no value in that. And you're trying to be creative and artistic, and it's this whole social media thing. Someone says something, it comes across as aggressive, you turn up the volume on that, you're obsessed with the negative. It's worthless, because actually those people shouting it's irrelevant. It's the old, you can graffiti on a toilet wall. That's about the use of Twitter half the time.
So true.
Yeah, I mean, I stole that from Ricky Gervais, but it's true. And I've turned people off and realized they're not even my friends, and they're saying this stuff, and I want to get in an argument about it, and then what am I arguing with? Ultimately, myself. And
now, I made a decision on July 1st. After a long conversation with Willow, actually, but I didn't like the toxicity and poisonousness of social media, and I was getting sucked in, and I'd rant about Trump, and I'd rant about this and that, and it wasn't doing me any good, it wasn't doing anyone else any good, and it was boring, and I'm like, why was my opinion count about that crap anyway? So I decided that my social media world, my Facebook, my Instagram, my Twitter, and my LinkedIn would become places of just help and healing and kindness. And ever since then, every post I've done, which has not been many, it's been 6 or something so far, but I won't ever go back to that ever again, because I don't want, politics just makes me angry, and it made other people angry, and it's not helping. We see the news is on a 24-hour cycle coming at us all day long. And, my social media should be a place to put music and have lovely things being talked about, and a place of respite from all of it.
Yeah. And when, where can people follow you? Where would people follow you?
Well,
the general public.
On social media, but Facebook. I've got 2 pages. I've got my personal page, which is James Anthony Carrington, and I've got James Carrington Music. I've got Twitter, I think, is Carrington Sings, and Instagram is Carrington Sings. I couldn't do James Carrington at the time. And then LinkedIn's really for work, but those are the best places. But I'm in the process of building a brand new website.
Okay.
That's going to incorporate all of the things I'm doing, because I've got an app coming out that's going to help people learn to read music.
Right.
I'm doing an original songs for kids album, which I'm really, really excited about, which is with this guy Jesse String, who's in LA, produces engineers people like Jonas Brothers and Ziggy Marley, and he's an amazing musician, producer, engineer, mixer. And we're both fathers. And I'd written a couple of songs about my kids, and then he heard one. He was like, "That's wicked. Do you want to do some stuff together?" And we've got 8 tracks now, and they're all original songs. We're trying to basically offer the world not Wheels on the Bus, and it's really, and they're all in different genres, so it's really fun, And then and then I've got my teaching, and then I've, and so there's I've got a lot to say, and I need to find a place to put it. So, with Squarespace and with the person I'm going to work with here, I'm about to start work with, building different pages on it. And that will be the little hub. But then I'll also have the social media, but I'm hoping to draw people to the website. So we get off Facebook and,
Yeah, well, we've got to use whatever we can to promote and popularize. Listen, I know we're going to run out of time shortly. I mean, but I think maybe we should wrap it up now, but maybe with another song.
Sure. Is there any songs of mine that you'd like me to play, or do you just want me to pick?
I don't know. There's so many that and I can't remember the titles, because I'm just trying to remember at the Baked Potato last time that I came.
Yeah.
And there's a couple, and I never remember the bloody names, but the
titles are so hard to remember.
Yeah. Because
would it have been Stop the World? Would it have been 20 different places?
It may have been Stop the World. Just give me a little melody on Stop the World.
Stop the World, I wrote with a lovely friend of mine called Boris, his real name is James Simmons, but he was known to me as Boris for a while. It's the one that goes, "Living in Daydream."
Yes. Yeah.
Want me to do that one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a classic.
Well, who knows?
I played the Baked Potato.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Paul Roffman, ladies and gentlemen, magician, musician, many things. Groundlings graduate, I believe, or still in the process.
I've finished that, but I've writer's
fantastic.
Yeah.
No, you're an inspiration to me, man. Your show in the Home, or whatever that club's
H
called.
Club.
was amazing. Absolutely amazing.
Thank you.
No, it was, the confidence and your ability is extraordinary. But that thing with the guitar, I will never forget. That was absolutely wonderful.
Well, you've been a great supporter of my performances as well, and always.
I mean, we've all of us artists, we've got to support each other, and we bring joy and pleasure to people, and that's our job. So long may it continue. Let's hope we can get back to doing it. Well, we can do it online, and then we'll get back out there live soon.
Yeah, and we're due a session together as well. A long.
Yes, we are. Well, we got to write and we got to play.
Yeah, I've got some stuff that I want to throw at you as well. And
wicked. And we should do that. Use this COVID time to.
Well, we'll do it online.
That'd be great. I'd love that.
Okay, so we're going to have a bit of. We're going to wrap it up with this one.
Wrap it up with this one. I'd like to dedicate this one to my friend James Simmons, known as Boris to me.
Okay.
But he wrote the first verse. We've gone on holiday to Morocco together, and he said, "Look, I've written a few lyrics. Is there any chance you'd write a song with me?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." And so this ended up being that song, and so it's very much for him. And he's had some struggles too, but like me, he's healing himself, and he's doing really well. So. Really proud of him.
So this is Stop the World.
Living in daydreams, I am so tired. I lost all of my reasons for all the things I desire. My life's so crazy, I need some time out. Don't let me turn myself inside out. Stop the world, I wanna get off. Close the doors, I've had enough. Bring the silence, peace of mind. All I wanna do is unwind. Sliding up stairways, day after day. Walking through people, nothing to say. My life's so crazy, I need some time out. Don't let me turn myself inside out. And stop the world, I wanna get off. Close the doors, I've had enough. I bring the silence, peace of mind. All I wanna do is unwind. Roll where the fast ones stop where they land. Nobody sees when you get through. Pick with the slow ones, but go with the no ones. Nobody tells you what to do. Bring out the storm clouds that you find when you lose that peace of mind. Just for a moment, your mama. Stop the world, wanna get off. Close the doors, I've had enough. I'll bring you silence, peace of mind. All I wanna do is unwind.
Wow. Beautiful.
Wow,
you're sounding, fantastic. Your voice is really on it.
Oh, thank you.
You can hear your balance. I can hear your balance. Yeah, I can hear it. I can hear you through it.
Yeah.
There's no cloud in the way of it.
No, I don't think so. And I think the energy that you put off once you clean up and you really, as I say, I believe in a higher power, and I believe that higher power not only saved my life, but is within me. Mm-hmm. And as they say in the Serenity Prayer, accept the things you cannot change, the courage to change the things you can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And the peace that brings you, the serenity that it brings you, is immense. And with that serenity comes an ability to flow properly, as an artist. And cocaine is a terrible thing for music, because I could make a bit of electronic music on it, but I couldn't perform properly, and I couldn't really, I couldn't write a song to save my life, And so why I thought that was a good idea, I'll never know.
The thing is, listen, all this stuff, being creative is hard. It is. It's hard. It ain't easy. You're dealing with, you're constantly dealing with self-doubt. We all go through that. To anyone listening, you look at people, like you've written a lot of stuff. You've played with great people. You've written great music, and you still have that voice on your shoulder saying, it's not good enough. Why are you bothering? Why are you doing this?
Yeah.
And then you have people saying it to you, and you're like, do I take that on board? And it's nonsense, bullshit. I call bullshit. Nonsense.
Yeah, and actually, that voice, that horrible voice that sits there, the one you talk about, which is very, very, it's rife in almost every artist I've ever met, including the greatest.
Absolutely.
But what I've done is I've flipped it now, and I just think of this great quote from Paul Simon, who's one of my faves of all time. And Abe Laboriel, he told me this because he's very good friends with him. In fact, Paul Simon called him up once and said, Abe, I'm struggling with this. I'm not going to do Paul Simon's accent because I can't, but I'm struggling with this song, and I'm in like F sharp with a sus and a D sharp diminished. And Abe was like, why don't you just do D to G?
Right.
oh, you're right. And finished the song. And also, Abe went to his house in Connecticut. I think it's in Connecticut. And he went in, and there was a room. And it was like a library. 4 walls, 4 shelves, sets of shelves. And 3 of the shelves full of notebooks. No normal books, just notebooks. And 1 shelf half full. And Abe said, what's all this? And Paul said, that's all stuff I tried to write. That's my albums. So even a man who sounds as effortless as him struggles unbelievably so. And when he was interviewed the other day, and the guy said to him, Paul, what's your best song? And with utter conviction, he said, I haven't written it yet. And if he can say that, anyone can say that.
Absolutely.
So that's what gives me the keep going.
Listen, I think that's a perfect time to wrap it up.
Thanks for having me, man. What a pleasure.
Absolute pleasure. And I mean, we could talk for hours, and we haven't even touched on songwriting processes, music. I mean, there's so much. There's so much. We'll do another session on that.
We'll do another, yeah.
Yeah, but honestly, it's so good to see you healthy. It's so good to see you fit and creative again. And I can't wait for you to get back here, and we can have a carrot juice together.
Absolutely. Carrot juice and some raw veggies.
James Carrington, check him out online. There's going to be a website coming soon, a new album coming soon, and I will be promoting it as well as soon as I hear who's recording it. But they'll bring it back to you. So James Carrington, thank you so much. It's been a joy.
Thank you, Paul. It's been a real honour to be included in your podcast, and good luck with them all, because can't wait. I'll be telling everyone about them. I think podcasts is the best thing, and it's great you're doing one.
Thanks a lot, and I'll see you soon.
You will. Lots of love.
Lots of love.
All right. See you soon, man.
Bye-bye.